Hello, everyone. My name is Derek DeWinter, and welcome to our listeners who are tuning into the DeWinter Difference, an audio podcast where I spend a bit of time with incredible executives I've known for years, and you get to listen in. I hope our conversations are unique, fun, insightful, short enough to keep your attention, but long enough to listen to on the way from point A to point B. Our goal is to have fun and share a few takeaways that you can apply in your own career, life, and relationships. Today, you get to listen into a conversation between yours truly and Dave Stephenson, Chief Business Officer and Head of Employee Experience at Airbnb. This is a newish role for Dave, who more recently was the CFO at Airbnb. Prior to that, he spent a handful of incredible years at a little company called Amazon.com and Procter & Gamble. Dave, thanks a ton for joining us today.
Derek, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's one thing to look at this finished product, which is you, and maybe you wouldn't describe yourself as a finished product quite yet, but it's a whole other thing to see how you came to be here today. And so, kind of going back all the way to being a Bobcat at Montana State, can you share a little bit about your journey and how you got from there to here?
Sure. Yeah. I grew up in Montana. Both my parents are from Montana. We go back, multiple generations. I love to be a big skier in Montana. And I stayed in Montana to go to school at Montana State and be a ski racer. Also thought at the time I wanted to be an architect. And then I realized that an architect was an amazing career, but maybe not one that could get me to where I wanted to be in the future. And I felt like engineering was an opportunity for me to use my kind of analytical skills and do something bigger. And I was fortunate to have a first job out of Montana State going to work for Procter& Gamble. My first job out of college, I made shampoo and toothpaste. So you can ask me about putting toothpaste in toothpaste tubes. But it was a great learning ground to kind of expand my skills and experience coming from engineering out into the real world. I moved to the Midwest, moved to Iowa. So it's hard being a big ski racer and moving to the flatlands of Iowa. But Procter& Gamble is just such a great training ground. I was willing to make that sacrifice. And, along the way, I got my MBA at Procter& Gamble. They supported me in getting my master's degree. And I was buying my books off of this little online bookstore called Amazon. And one day there was a job posting on the website for a role. And I was like, I asked my wife, hey, can I, put my resume in for this job opportunity in Seattle? And I did. And, was fortunate enough to be able to join all the way back in 1999. So yeah, it's an incredible ride. Spent there almost 20 years at Amazon, all in a bunch of different finance roles. Felt like I was going to be there for a long time, maybe the rest of my career. And then Brian Chesky called me and told me what he wanted to build in terms of Airbnb and the skills that he needed out of his next CFO. And felt like I could use the 30 years of experience that I had at Amazon to kind of bring to Airbnb to help him achieve his ambitions. So I was really fortunate to be able to join in 2019. Little did I know I was going to be the CFO of Airbnb in the midst of a global pandemic. A heck of a ride, but I feel like it's been an incredible journey where I've really been able to kind of use all that experience from my engineering days all the way back through Amazon to help Airbnb, be now a Fortune 500 company. So I don't know, it's been an incredible ride.
That's funny for a guy who is often accused of being a little bit old school, me. It is amazing to hear you say that you applied to something on Amazon.com off the website. And it's interesting. People see Amazon for what it is today, but Amazon was not a gigantic company back in 1999. It was far from it, certainly even a few years earlier than that. So I love hearing that. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I told my wife, she says, look, there's Amazon's starting to sell CDs. They're selling DVDs. I said, like, this thing is going to be huge. And yeah, little did I know how amazing it was going to be.
That's great. Well, you are in a new role at Airbnb, and one that you created or was created for you, and you can tell us a little bit about that. And that's not something that happens overnight, and neither does elevating people on your team into roles that you leave, which as CFO of Airbnb is a really, really big one. Anyone who has dealt with or met with Ellie knows she's an incredible finance leader and will very admirably step into your shoes. Those things don't always happen. It takes sponsorship and effort. So can you talk to us a little bit about that transition and the advice that you might give other senior leaders in finance or otherwise as they develop their teams?
Yeah, I was really fortunate when I came into Airbnb to have such a senior leader like Ellie Mertz on the team as part of my team. and clearly knew that she was going to be a very capable CFO in the future. And we worked together to make sure that she gained the kind of skills and experiences she needed so that she could be the next CFO. And so we were very intentional about how we work together and that support. So I was fortunate having her as a partner, and I couldn't be more proud about her success and now being the new CFO. Yeah, this chief business officer role, it is new. We created it as a way for Airbnb to enter in the next chapter that we have as a company. We've been so focused on working on just the core part of the business, and now we're working to kind of expand beyond the core stays business into services and experiences. And in order to do that, it felt like we needed to create this chief business officer role to help stitch together and work with all the different functions to ensure they're working together to achieve our ultimate results. Airbnb is different than many other companies. We're a functional company. So we have a design function, a product function, a marketing function, an engineering function, and all those functions roll up to Brian Chesky as our CEO. But as this chief business officer role, I can help him ensure that all those functions are working together to deliver outstanding results. And so I'm really excited about the new opportunity. Been in the role now about 9 months, and it's been very rewarding and challenging. And I look forward to what we're going to be doing in the future.
Well, you've got all the hard skills to bring lots of different perspectives to the table, not just starting in engineering, but finance, and obviously a big focus on culture and people. So I think he's very lucky to have you in that role. And on the path to different senior level positions in corporate America, you need to pick up talent and skill and allyship and a little bit of luck. A lot of work ethic, goes into success. And let's pretend you're walking along the beach and seashells represent those different skills and attributes. And you only have enough room in your pocket to collect 3 or 4 skills or those attributes. And for purposes of my analogy, those are seashells. So which ones are you focused on picking up?
Yeah, I'll go to the seashells in a minute, but even maybe just step back that I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got as I entered my career was from my mom, who told me just to work for the best company you can work for at any given point in time. And then if you can do that, you're going to get the skills and the training that you need. And I say that because that was that example. I left Montana for Iowa to go work for Procter and Gamble, and it was an incredible experience because P&G gave me, I think, the foundational skills that have led to much of my success to date. So those seashells came from Procter and Gamble, and they really are some of the basics. So, I mean, it's super simple things. How to run an effective meeting. What are the basics of being a good team leader? I think that would be number one. Number two is just organizational skills. How do you kind of prioritize what's most important and give it some structure so that you are always working on the most important things, not always the most urgent things? And then just analytical skills. I think, how do you measure success? What are the measures and your goals, and how do you know that you're making progress against it? I think all those skills learned early on in my career, and I attribute them back to that first decision to go work for Procter and Gamble.
Interesting. What sort of, when you see people that maybe don't achieve the level of success that you have, do you think there are folks that covet the wrong attributes? And if they do, where do you see a consistent missed area of focus for that?
I think when I see some of the issues is when somebody aspires to a title, a huge responsibility, and maybe a small company too quickly, because then there's no one to learn from. Like, so yeah, they're the senior vice president of 100-person company, and they're not surrounding themselves with the best people that they can go learn from. You'd rather be a engineering manager in a multi-thousand person company where you get to surround yourself with these amazing people and learn from them. And I'd even say that at Airbnb, we have, I don't know, 6,000 employees, and we strive to have some of the best employees in the world working for us. This functional structure that I talked about is this, it's like a T-shaped structure. It's broad, where we have to collaborate across functions, but it's deep, and you have this deep functional expertise. And what's amazing about that is that then you can learn from one another and build upon the skills. But if you go be this SVP of a 100-person company too early in your career, there's no one to kind of learn from. There's no structure to kind of give you the skill and experience you need.
It's one of the more frustrating things that I see in the advisory part of my career over the years. You almost see it coming like a train in the decision making that some people make, and you just wish you could fast forward things a few years and show people the Christmas future that somebody might have if they just stuck with the decision that they had versus going for that SVB title or being adorned with something that is more flash than substance. So we're talking about taking things from the same playbook for sure. Well, I don't know how much people know about this, but this will be a good chance for you to extol the virtues of Airbnb in Paris. But the Summer Olympics are now in the rearview mirror, and Airbnb played a pretty big role as sponsor this year. And you were there maybe throughout the entire Olympics. You could let us know. In fact, for those who don't know it, you were actually a torchbearer. So I definitely want to know about how that felt and maybe a little bit about how this partnership came to pass.
Sure. So we became a top sponsor of the Olympics back in 2019 and had a 9-year sponsorship all the way through the LA 28 Olympics. And then, we had COVID. So that challenged us with the Tokyo Olympics, where we couldn't actually have people together. And then we had the challenge of Beijing, which was a Winter Olympics and had its own kind of geopolitical issues. Paris has been the really first time where we, I think, have had the full expression and the benefit of Airbnb kind of sponsoring the Olympics. And if you kind of think back, what's amazing about the Olympics is they're the ultimate hosted event, right? You have a city hosting people from all around the world to go participate in this incredible community of athleticism. It's just the quintessential hosted event. And so, with Airbnb being the quintessential hosted company where we want to be able to connect people from all around the world in person in real life, it's a perfect synergy. For Paris specifically, we had over 400,000 people staying in Airbnbs during the Olympics. And the Olympics really couldn't happen in the same way if it wasn't for Airbnb. We made them accessible to hundreds of thousands of people from all around the world and from France. We made them very affordable. So the cost of an Airbnb during the Olympics was about the same as it was the year before. So it just enabled, more people to experience it. And then when people do come and stay in an Airbnb, they actually also experience the community. They experience the neighborhood they're living in. We actually had Airbnbs because part of the Olympics were not all in Paris. They were spread around the country too. Somewhere in like Lille and somewhere in Bordeaux and somewhere down in like Marseille. And so they were staying in Airbnbs all around the country. It was incredible. And so, yeah, I was there almost 2 weeks. It was super fortunate to be able to carry the torch. And I thought the energy was amazing. I carried the torch. You kind of trot along. You say run with the torch, but you kind of trot along for a couple hundred yards. But it was this great neighborhood called Saint Denis, which is near where the Olympic Village was. And there were thousands of people lining the streets, cheering on the torch. They have no idea who I am, though, running with the torch, but they were so excited to see the torch run by, and it is invigorating and energizing. I never expected it to be so amazing.
That's awesome. Are there going to be the same opportunities or different challenges in the cost containment part of it for Los Angeles that you were able to somehow affect in Paris?
Absolutely. I mean, again, we're going to be able to house hundreds of thousands of people in LA. They wouldn't really be able to hold the games the same way without it. I, was able to kind of meet with the LA 28 Olympic team, and one of their objectives is to have an expression of the community of LA and the actual different cultures of LA. They said that LA actually is home for the second largest population of dozens of countries around the world. Outside of the home country, the second largest population of many of these communities are actually in LA. It's incredibly diverse. And one of the things we're going to be able to do with Airbnb is actually have people stay in those communities, experience those communities, eat at those restaurants. We have Airbnb experiences where you can kind of learn about the culture and really engage in those cultures and stay there. I don't know. It's super exciting. I think we had an incredibly successful Paris Olympics games, and I think LA is going to just take it to a whole nother level.
That's awesome. So you and I have had conversations going back a bunch of years, some about things totally unwork related, like volleyball. I mean, you're a
Yes.
volleyball dad, and I'm a volleyball dad. Your daughter's ascended to greater heights than my kids did, but volleyball dads are volleyball dads. Lots of people we know in common, and more recently about how I may be self anointing myself as one of Airbnb's biggest fans. In fact, we were scheduling this conversation, or you agreed to this conversation while I was in an Airbnb on Kauai, which is really kind of a fun type of thing. So, as a consumer versus the chief business officer, how do you describe the appeal to the experience of staying in an Airbnb? And, what does your user experience mean to you as an employee of Airbnb?
Yeah. Well, a couple things. I first started staying in Airbnbs when I worked at Amazon. I was leading finance for the international websites. And in the summer, I was able to take my family to Europe and we lived on Airbnbs in communities. So we lived in Paris for a summer, we lived in London for a summer. And it was amazing because by living in the Airbnb, we lived in the neighborhood. We were shopping at the local grocery store. We had our, favorite restaurants, our favorite coffee shops, our favorite parks. And it was that ultimate expression of that Airbnb is so great at. It's like being part of the community, feeling at home and not kind of just feeling like you're an outsider. So really connecting. And that's what resonated with me at the time. That's what got me excited when I first started talking about Brian, about his vision for what it could be. And I think this is what we continue to do an amazing job at, which is allowing people to kind of travel, but live like a local, connect with the community, really feel that sense of belonging in the world. And I'm excited to continue to do more and more of that.
Funny, my wife, I was a very early adopter of Airbnb and almost refused to stay in a hotel at this point. My wife, on the other hand, was not, and she really kind of fought it for a little while. And now she's sort of in the same boat that I am, which is it just makes it make the life experience much richer than going into a fairly sanitary, albeit lovely hotel. I actually have 3 stays upcoming between now and the end of the year in a couple of different places. And I always get excited about walking into a new place. There's some familiarity about staying in the same Airbnb, which is actually kind of cool. But what are the two or three things that you appreciate when you walk into a new Airbnb or an Airbnb that you've been at before?
Well, one thing you may or may not know, I'm actually an Airbnb host. I host a cabin here just outside of Seattle near Crystal Mountain, Washington, Mount Rainier. And I also host a place in Palm Springs. And it gives you a nice appreciation of being on the other side. One of the things that I appreciate as a guest is, like I said, feeling part of the community. So what I try to provide as a host is a bit of that sense. So in the cabin that I have, we have a pizza oven, that I, give them great, pizza dough recipes. And we have some great hiking trails and I introduce them to the best places to go hike. We have our favorite coffee shop that's a few miles down the road and make sure that they stop and get some ice cream there. And so, I think that's what I appreciate is kind of that sense of feeling like, oh, I kind of know this place, I'm part of it. And so as a host, I try to work really hard to kind of give them that same kind of sense. I think the best stays are those when you connect with a host and they instantly make you part of that community. I have a number of Airbnb stays where I still stay in touch with that host. And, if I'm back in that same community again, I love to, stay with the same host again in the future. That connection, I think, is truly unique and not something that you get in a hotel.
Yeah. So early in our conversation, you mentioned that going into college, you thought maybe you would go into architecture. You may not feel the same way now. But what would you be doing if you weren't in a senior leadership role like you're in now? Would it be architecture? Yes.
Actually, I
Maybe
think,
maybe it's what you're doing now.
yeah, no, it's fun. It's a great question. Yeah, actually, when I joined Amazon, we said that all roads were going to lead to Vail, Colorado. I said, this is going to be an incredibly successful career, and I will then just retire to Vail and be a skier, or it's going to completely implode. In reality, I really liked what I was doing, and it felt like, and I've been doing it for many years. So neither of those has happened, but I might go back and teach skiing again. I love being in the mountains. I love sharing an expertise with others. I love teaching. I think it's an incredible sport. And I think you learn a lot about life when you are an athlete and can kind of share those skills with others.
Love that. So I've been asking you a bunch of questions. Now's the time where we turn the tables and you get to ask me a question, and I don't know what it is. So you can fire away, my friend.
Well, again, I've been in this chief business officer role now 8 months, brand new job, role never existed at a big, Fortune 500 company. What advice would you give me to be successful in this new, never done before rule?
Well, somebody said it, I didn't, but you've got two ears and one mouth. And I've always approached my job listening more than talking. And I think if you're in a new role trying to create something that has not been done before, the very best thing you can do is truly listen and take in from everybody, even the people that you question. There's lots of smart people that you're surrounded by, and then there's always somebody that maybe is a little bit off or maybe a little bit different. But I think even that type of perspective can help you kind of shape the decisions that you make when you make big and important and costly, recommendations for a company in terms of their strategy. So I think whether it's life or whether it's work, I just think listening is a bit of a lost art. And I would, not that I need to tell you what you need to do to be successful. You're incredibly successful, but that would be probably the one piece of advice I would give someone in a unique situation like you're in now.
I love that. I think I 100% agree that listening, that's great advice. I appreciate it. Like being a little patient, like coming to a new role, you could get in a role ready to try to make a lot of change, and listening to start is I think great advice. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, the world likes to fill up space, like dead space or no noise, or, whether it's sticking in a picture or a video or a voice or a noise or something. And I think sometimes just sitting back and listening and letting silence, fill up the space is a really good thing. So big fan, big fan. So let's see. I'm going to let you get going with one final question, because the greatest bite of food I've ever had in my life has been in Montana. And
Wow.
yes, I know. Have you ever spent any time in Kalispell?
Of course I have. But what's the restaurant?
The DeSoto Grill.
I have not been to the DeSoto Grill. I'll be there this winter, so I'll have to go check it out.
We had some friends that went up there years ago, and we continue to order food from them and have it shipped to us because it
Oh,
was
that's
so
amazing.
amazing. They're BLT. So anybody
Okay.
who's listening, if you plan a trip to Montana, don't fall asleep on Kalispell. It's an amazing place, and an amazing BLT. So Dave, I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing a little bit of that with us. And I will look forward to catching up with you on a personal, professional basis down the road. And good luck in this new role, and good luck with Airbnb's continued success.
Thank you, Derek. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the DeWinter Difference podcast. If you like this episode, head to dewintergroup.com/DeWinter-difference to catch future episodes and share your thoughts, comments, or suggestions. And make sure to connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. This podcast is produced by the DeWinter Group, the leading recruiting firm in the Bay Area and beyond. We help top companies and people reach their fullest potential through world-class accounting, finance, and technology recruiting services.